Hey guys, Dylan here, bringing you another video after a couple of weeks I've been away. But I'm back with a tutorial, and today we're going to be drawing Vegito. The specific Vegito I'm drawing is from the new series Dragon Ball Heroes, or Super Dragon Ball Heroes, I don't even know what it's called anymore. But basically, there's this panning shot of Vegito, and I went into Photoshop and stitched it together, so I'm going to be using this reference. I should put that in there. And yeah, let's get started. Just grab a pencil, some sketchbook paper, a black pen for the line work, and then if you have it, markers or colored pencils, anything really works. Personally, I'm going to be using my iPad, but you can use whatever you want. I just prefer the digital media.
Alright, to start out, we're going to rough out a very, very light perfect square, or as perfect as you can get it. And then I put a center line. While it's not in the center, it's in the center of the eye line of the character that we're drawing, which is Vegito. And then I go ahead and, for Super Saiyans, or just Saiyans in general, I put like a cone around to show where their hair should go. I think that was a tip I picked up from Yair Sasson Art from watching his videos, and it's very helpful. And then I put in two slanting lines. Again, I'm drawing very lightly since these are what are called construction lines, and you won't see them in the final product. So they're just very light, and they help you get your proportions down. After resizing my image on the iPad to make sure it's right where I want, I go ahead and rough in the torso shape, which is probably closest geometrically to a triangle, being wider up top towards the shoulders, and then wide narrowing down as you go down to the pelvis. Again, keeping that trend of a center line going down even throughout the torso. Then, as you see, I just put in circles for the shoulders, and one circle should be bigger, and that will be the closest one to you, to keep that illusion of perspective and things that are closer to you being larger. Then I just put two lines going down to indicate where the legs are going to be going. Then again, lightly, I start to begin the arms. When you're doing arms, keep tube shapes in mind, and arms are pretty much, you can either draw lines to indicate where you want them to go, or you can just rough out them as they're going to look in the final product, which is what I tend to do. But just for the most part, the bicep looks like a tube, and then the forearm looks like a smaller tube, and then you can just put like cylinders or squares for the hands as of now. And then right now I'm just going in and doing little details to show where I want the fabric to begin and end. Then again, going down, putting down legs just to block in where the feet are going to be. And nothing too special here, just really getting a rough image of the stance and making sure everything looks right. Now, beginning the face, for some reason I wasn't recording when I did these initial dark lines, but it is what it is. It's pretty simple to copy down. But what I'm doing right now is I'm putting in the eyebrows, and just try to keep your lines as smooth as possible here, and try not to go back and forth like you'll see me doing. But you know, I'm not a professional artist, and you know, I'm still working too, so just try to keep that in mind. But anyway, after this point, I put down the vertical lines to indicate where the eyes should end, and then I also put down horizontal lines to give them their width. And then also I put in these little squiggles for their eyebrows, or where the forehead crinkles. And also in between their eyes is another little crinkle that they get when they're making like a scrunched up face. It happens with the nose as well, and some lines will fall under that once I get to that. Now that the eyes are formed, it's time to put in the pupils. These aren't exactly semicircles. They're more of like the very edge of a circle. Just try to keep that in mind and kind of elongate them to make them more lip shaped than circles. And make sure they're pointing at the camera or wherever they're intended to be. In this case, it's right at the camera. Then for the nose, try to get it as the tip of the nose as close to the line of the face shape, and that should be a good indicator that you have it in the right position. And the mouth is pretty straightforward, just a line, some chins under the mouth, and is once again just indicated by a couple of lines underneath the mouth. Also, try to be very flowing when you do those under eye lines. They're very common in Dragon Ball, and they don't really give the effect that they're supposed to unless you get them done really quick. So try to move your hand as quickly as possible when putting those in. And now I'm just refining the face shape, checking my reference, because most of the times I get very involved in what I'm drawing and sometimes don't check to make sure that what I'm doing is exactly accurate to the source material. So it's good to always reference every now and then. And then for the ears, just putting in some random lines to give it a more realistic shape. And then I put in the Patara earring, which is a signature feature of Vegito. And it's just kind of like a normal clasp going around the ear, and then two smaller circles going from under it, and then a large one that is the actual earring part itself. Now I'm going to rough in where the hair spikes should go in. He has one draping in front of his face and one that is kind of glimpsing his forehead, as you'll see in a second. Try to not let any of the spikes come to a blunt end or, just kind of have them taper off. Make sure they come to a really sharp point, which kind of gives it that signature Dragon Ball look. Or if you're going for something different, you can obviously change it up. I'm just trying to stay as close to the source material as I can, but I do change things here and there, so if that's something that you would like to do, then feel free to. And then I just go ahead and rough in where the rest of the spikes should go. There's not too many, and also with the cone guide you had earlier, make sure to follow along there roughly, because what tends to happen when you're roughing in the hair is sometimes you draw spikes further and further up, and eventually it'll look not proportional to the head or the rest of the body, and that's not what you want. So just try to make sure you stay in that relative range of where you drew the cone initially to make sure things look, normal. Then after a little refining of the face shape and the nose, I go ahead and draw in my first couple of necklines. And now I'm going to indicate the exposed portion of the torso, after of course fixing the shoulder that I thought didn't look right. Just bringing it in a little bit closer to show him not as broad-shouldered as I had him before. But back to what I was saying, roughing in the exposed section of his torso, which is where you see the shirt and part of the, oh God, what's the word? You know what? Forget it. Pectoral muscles, that's it. Anyway, Then begin to rough in the edges of the clothing. The gis in Dragon Ball always have the kind of signature, very like sharp-edged geometric effect. So right now I'm just working on the edges, showing what's going to be exposed, and then also I put in a little bit of the shoulder and the top of the tricep muscle, and I'm just darkening the lines that I like and just refining that basic shape that we made earlier. Then moving on to the more detail-oriented section is just putting lines in fabric and showing where clothes ripple and fold, and then also doing details such as the line work in the boots of Vegito and other things like that. Then I quickly just wanted to show, now that I have the final rough image that I like, the inking process. It's very straightforward. Just follow your original final rough draft lines, and especially if you're doing this with a physical paper and pen, where with the iPad I have here, everything is kind of, fixable and never permanent. Like as you see right there, I just erased a line I didn't like. When I used to do this on paper, I was probably a lot more cautious and just very more wary of the fact that every line that you put down will be permanent, and no pressure, but just try to get it right and just be confident and move your pen kind of quickly to give you those really thin and sharp lines, and just try to have a steady hand. But it's pretty easy, so just take your time. And now that the drawing is inked, I can begin my favorite part of the drawing, and I think a lot of people enjoy this too, which is the coloring. So if you have markers, go ahead and get them out, or pens or colored pencils, whatever you're using to do color. I'm using the iPad, so it's really easy to do color and really nice to blend with. That's why I really fell in love with the iPad, because of just how versatile it is and all the different utilities and brushes that you get. But in terms of the actual coloring technique, just try to stay in one direction. It doesn't affect me as heavily with the iPad, but I remember when I was doing it on physical paper, it did matter quite a bit to the end result. And I do try to follow those same principles on the iPad, because I am using a paintbrush tool, and the streak marks do affect when I'm using different opacities and trying to blend. But for the light work, I usually will identify where the light source is in the reference and then just take it from there. And whenever I have doubts about where to put a shadow or a highlight, I'll just look back to the source material, which is perfectly fine, and just, you know, stay consistent. And just, it's a little bit tedious, but I feel like it's probably one of the most enjoyable parts of the whole drawing. Alright, and with that little demonstration done with, the rest of the coloring follows the same principles, and I'm just going to let the rest of the speed paint captured by Procreate play out. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Drop a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, especially with a lot of new projects coming up, and hopefully more consistent uploading, which I am working on, feel free to subscribe. It really helps me out a lot, and, you know, it just helps me know that people are enjoying my content and watching what I'm doing. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.